It's too late, y'all. The revolution has already begun. It has already begun. They're here. What am I talking about? Well, I am talking about the Artisan Revolution. What is that, you're wondering? Okay, well, first and foremost, let's before we talk about the Artisan Revolution and exactly what that is, my name is Andre Still, and I am a craft maker in the Philadelphia area. I create things from scrap metal and scrap wood, and I turn them into something good. I've been doing this now for 5 years, and just this past January, we have gone into it full time and trying to make a living off of creating with our hands. So I can officially call myself an artisan. I do create things through mediums such as metalworking, woodworking, and things like that. I do a lot of welding and stuff of the sorts. I've been thinking about this topic for a very long time, and I started to do a little bit of research into what it means, or what is even artisanship, or what does it mean to be an artisan. And then I found, very simply, it's just someone who creates with their hands, someone who creates some stuff. You know, it could be coffee, it could be burgers, it could be crafts like I do. There's a whole spectrum of being an artisan. And that drove me down a deeper path of, like, what does the artisan economy look like? You know, what things are going on in that world, you know what I mean? So as I dove, I think dove is the right word. It may not be, but I think it is. As I dove, because dive does not sound right. So I think as I dove down this path or road, if you will, I began to find some cool and some inspiring facts and some inspiring things. Some other things a bit scary, but overall I kind of take in that there is a call for artisans out there, from locally to now we're starting to see on the grander scales, if you will, from some of the bigger brands and some of the bigger companies. Some of them have always kind of called for artisans and craftsmanship, and they've kind of always hinted at it. And then there's others that are kind of just coming around to calling for artisans and things like that. Now, I had to kind of post-date or predate all of this because artisans didn't just come around in the recent years. Artisans have been around for decades, centuries, probably since the beginning of time. Well, the beginning of time, obviously. So my mind started to wonder even furthermore, well, where did all the artisans go at one point? You know, why does it seem like makers of sorts are, you know, these people that are just in there, you know, at one point we're in their caves making stuff, and now we're just in our garages and no one knows about us. Where did they all go? So one of the first parts of this bit of research that I've done, if you'll call it that, is I wanted to know how the American Revolution kind of impacted artisans. And like everything, you know, you can find the good and bad of any situation. And so one of the first things that the Industrial Revolution did to artisans was it created efficiency within, you know, the tools and the technology that was available. Like when the steam engine became first not the water mill. Oh, I forgot what they actually call it, but I think like the water mill was invented, and then you had the steam engines that were, you know, a lot of tools and big machinery were used off of, trains were moved off the steams, and then there was some more positive things that came about with the Industrial Revolution. Was that there was, I'm reading my notes too, so if I keep looking down, I apologize. There was a rise of design and artistic identity, I guess you can say. Artisans were able to kind of benefit from the machine, the idea of machines being used, and kind of make, something made by hand really like, kind of stand out and say, hey, this is art, and this is like, this is a bit different than that. And then, of course, there was the birth of like the craft movement and craft community. A lot of people at that time, when during the Industrial Revolution, they were very like, you know what, we still respect things being made by hand, and we're kind of resisting this new way of life with these machines, and you keep your machines and you keep your things of such. And then some of the negative things are obviously, you lost a lot of your local economy. Okay, so you had these factories put up, these big machineries, these big machines, and people had to run them. And then you kind of lost that autonomy, just kind of being able to move on your own time, just as an artisan, because you did begin to take some of these jobs in the factories and warehouses and stuff like that. And unfortunately, and what we see today with mass production, is it kind of devalued the skill in craftsmanship, because with these big machines that can produce fast, speed kind of became the selling point, more so than, oh, this is one of a kind, this is unique to what it is. And then there was kind of this, I think what we see a lot today, is there is a disconnect between the maker and products. So the Industrial Revolution kind of separated me or you putting your name on a product compared to just a business putting their name on a product. And it kind of, there was a sense of like, I guess, personability. I don't know if that's a word, but I think it is. We'll figure that out later. I think there was a sense of like personability that was lost. Kind of what we see, when you go to a mom and pop, maybe food market, compared to when you go to, one of the bigger shopping marts and stuff like that. It just seems, sometimes there just seems to be a disconnect. One thing just seems very formal, and the other thing is you might walk in on, the owners, just having a good time and enjoying themselves, compared to you walk into some of the corporate stores, there's levels to it. There's a certain level of professionalism that you get. So those were some of the major impacts of the Industrial Revolution on the artisan themselves. Can you say it was good or bad? Well, the one thing the Industrial Revolution also did was create jobs and things of that sort. Again, some may say that those jobs created just took away from, again, the identity of what it meant to be an artisan or a maker or something like that. So then we'll fast forward back to now, where I started, again, just doing some deeper dive into today's economy, artisan economy. And what I thought was really cool is, during COVID, a lot of people kind of picked up a craft. They had time to do something, and they finally kind of pursued that thing that they've always wanted to do. But what these numbers actually show is that the market has grown, actually growing. The handicraft market and the artisan market was actually growing before 2020, but a lot of places where I found information, you do see a spike in 2020 of the amount of like materials being sold to make something, and even the amount of material things being sold in the artisan economy. Now, I'm not a big statistic guy personally, because numbers don't lie, but they also don't tell the whole story. So the global handicraft market, if you will, from 2024 to 2030, it is, as of 2024, it was estimated at a $740 billion industry, and in 2020 it is projected to be estimated at about $983 billion market or industry. In America alone, in 2023, the handicraft market was about $155 billion market. and in 2030, it is estimated to be a $199 billion industry. Yeah, I said that right. $199 billion industry. Some other cool things that numbers-wise that go along with this. Consumers are willing to pay roughly about 10% more for an item on like sustainable goods. So, you know, if you go into, I don't know, Walmart and you get a mug off the shelf, you know, a consumer is going to be willing to pay a bit more for a handcrafted item compared to a mass-produced item. One thing about shipping, 60% of 60% of consumers were willing to pay. I'm sorry. Yeah, 60% of consumers were willing to pay more for sustainable packaging. So basically what that means is, I actually don't know what that means. So just skip that part. I just wrote that down because that was a number that I saw, on the list there. So as we can see from a statistical standpoint, the handicraft market is growing. Now it's kind of funny because if you are a person that does markets, the last 2 years, you might be wondering, well, where is my share in this billion dollar industry? A lot of makers will tell you that the last 2 years, especially, have been a bit slow. Or from the more experienced people that I've talked to, you know, they'll tell you that the buying patterns of all the markets that they have done just didn't seem to be the exact same that they've experienced in previous years. I can say that at the markets that I've been doing, it's been very hit or miss per se, and this is kind of some of my reasoning for wanting to kind of dive into this topic, because, you know, I'm standing at markets and I'm not always selling or making the money that I thought I would be making, to be honest with you. But, you know, markets are always hit or miss. You know, there's a lot of variables into markets anyway. But even, you know, through our website sales and stuff like that, there's been some question regarding, you know, is there really a call? So as I begin to do a little bit more research, if you will, or kind of look into some things about the artisan and craft market, I have noticed some big names, some of the bigger names calling for artisans. One notably being Ralph Lauren. They are doing what they call artist in residency at Ralph Lauren, and I kind of wanted to, because sometimes people will say, "Oh, these people are doing this, or this company is doing that," and then you look and it's like, oh, okay, they're just doing this because they have to do it. But this felt like this artist in residency that Ralph Lauren is doing, this does feel like something authentic. It does feel like something kind of well thought out a bit. So it kind of, they hired, or they thus far they have 2 Navajo people who have had a residency at Ralph Lauren. I forgot their names, and I do apologize. I'll actually put them in the description because I did forget their names. But one was a weaver, and that's what their family did, and another was a silver, I believe a jewelry and silver maker or something along those lines. And that actually started in 2023. So it wasn't like something, again, that I don't think it seemed like something very well put together for the artisans that were going to be a part of this program. It doesn't seem like it's just something thrown together and we're just going to do this for the public eye. Because to be honest with you, I didn't know this until I just happened to be kind of researching this topic. There's another company, I believe the name of the company was Barbour. They just bought a bunch of a good bit of or they bought a sewing mill or a weaving mill. I believe it was in Connecticut, and And I thought that was really cool as well, because again, when you do something like that, you're putting people back into work. There's not in a sewing mill, there's not a lot of or weaving mill, you don't get a lot of automation. You have people working these machines, and you have people. So as far as something being mass produced, you have to. When you think about something being mass produced, and then you think of something being made by hand on a high level, you're going to get a lot more quality in that realm. So I actually apologize. It wasn't Barbour that I was talking about. That opened up the knitting mill. It was Buck Mason. They purchased and opened up a knitting mill in actually in Pennsylvania. That's where I am, in Pennsylvania, and that was in 2023. Why is that? Why is any of that even important? Again, because these aren't things that are, including Ralph Lauren and things like that. These aren't things that have happened like in 2019 or 2018. These are things that are happening now. And for what does all this mean? I can pull up a bunch of companies that we're seeing more and more. One of the there's a Heath Ceramics. They're a B Corp, and they also are expanding collaborations with independent artists and things of that nature. And they actually in 2000, now this was predated COVID, but they actually deliberately pulled back from doing wholesale and kind of wanted to get a tighter control over how they of the craft and the craft narrative around their business and everything like that, which I thought was pretty cool as well. I didn't dive too deep into all of these companies. I just kind of read briefly about them and kind of got a little bit of understanding, and just kind of got the vibe that, okay, these are companies that are legit. But again, one of the more important things that I want to pull out is it doesn't really matter the company. We can go down a whole list, but I think my point is that these things are happening now within the last few years. There's sustainability has always been a call from consumers to large corporations, and we are starting to see a lot of corporations take that into consideration. If you go to like the your big lot stores or whatever the case is, you are seeing things that say made from or recycled from, and excuse me, I was about to sneeze. You are seeing things made, and that they're telling us they're made from this, or even I just saw, I think I was on Uline the other day, and it said, I think it said ethically made or something like that. And I think part of being an artisan is definitely having a concern for sustainability and doing things ethically. And I think that is also another reason why being an artisan is so powerful, because you have a lot more control over those things. We're seeing it again. People answering those calls as far as businesses answer those calls all around, and I think that's awesome. Again, I'm repeating myself, but the takeaway from the bit of research that I've done, or the bit of reading, if you don't want to call it research, that I've done is that these things are happening now, which now is putting craftsmanship, care back into products. And I think this creates a space for makers and artisans alike, or whatever, to be able to justify what it is they do, and at the end of this, really justify pricing, right? Like, I do believe in ethical pricing. I do believe in doing business, in a manner that both the consumer and the seller are walking away happy. This is a whole nother topic, but I do believe that when you spend time on something, your overhead, what you have involved in it, you should be charging to cover that and cover your cost of living. I don't think that, no, not everything that you create is a $4 billion thing, but at the same token, not everything that you create is truly a $20 thing either. And there has to be some honesty about that. So I think what we're seeing with this movement is the fact that because of social media, artisans are showing more of what goes into what they're making, and people are starting to see, oh, wait a second, this process took them 4 days, this process took them a month, this process took them. So now there is more leverage as an artisan to be able to, I would say, purposefully price your products and things like that. And again, I think there is becoming more of an understanding of what actually goes into making and creating something by hand. So as we move forward with this, I think we are in the early stages. I won't excite anyone and say, oh, if you're an artisan, you're about to make trillions of dollars. No, that's not what this video is about. What it is for one, it's really just a call to any consumers out there, going into the holiday season, of course, but just overall, begin to think small, begin to look locally. There's an artisan in your neighborhood that can create the same thing that you want off the shelf of whatever store, and it might come at a higher price point, but you are, for one, you're supporting a smaller economy. And when you support that smaller economy, the money goes directly to certain causes. So, we've all heard it. When you buy from a small business, that money is going directly to someone's tuition. That money is going directly to paying someone for working at that small business. Instead of, when you do buy from the bigger corporations and things like that, the money doesn't necessarily trickle down the same. It still trickles down, but it's just not the same. So this video is about a call to consumers to begin to think about, things such as sustainability. Think about the person in your neighborhood who, I don't know, crochets or whatever the case is. And then secondly, it's really, and I think this is most important, I know times are tough. I know things seem to be tight for everybody, and I'm not discarding any of that. But I would say, for my artisans out here, keep working, keep creating, keep doing what it is that you do. Because I do think we are in a transition in this country, for better or for worse. That's the topic for another day. But I do think that in this transition, a bit different than what the Industrial Revolution was, is that artisans are on the world stage now, because there's numbers that can prove that across just about a lot of countries that people are looking for unique crafted things. And secondly, on top of all of that, there's just a call in general for your skills, your skill set. Again, I won't say, something big's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not saying Ralph Lauren's going to come knock on your door tomorrow. I'm not saying, some company, is necessarily going to come knocking at the door tomorrow. But I am saying, however, that it is a time where, and I know for artisans, we love our work, but we don't like the work outside of it, which is one of the things promoting ourselves. That oftentimes, I know I struggle with it all the time. It kind of feels, I won't say sleazy, but it just kind of feels like, ugh, and I don't necessarily like it. But I will say that when I have promoted myself, when I have taken the time to step out of my comfort zone, it's worked out for me. And not just from a financial standpoint, but from also a standpoint of like people respecting the thing that I do. So I will say this is a time for artisans to step up and kind of get out of that shell and promote yourself, promote what you do, and see where things may go. You know what I mean? I don't have a financial plan to you. I don't know. I don't have a timeline of when I can say all of this is gonna blow up and we can all, truly live off of what it is that we do. But I will say it's worth it to keep getting after it. And as I like to say, it's worth it to keep swinging the hammer. So I've been rambling for a while now. So I'm going to go ahead and, I guess, log off or get up out of here. But I do thank you for listening. I do hope that something that I said today encourages you. Keep swinging the hammer, baby.